This one's wife. He gets so much wrong. This one's wife has attempted to assert control and draw fuel from various members of the royal family and the public at large as a consequence of her instructions to Omid Scobie for him to smear members of the royal family with various pieces of bullshit that have appeared in his publication, Bell Endgame. It's entirely clear to most people that this is the mouthpiece of this one's wife, and that this book has been generated to enable her to try and settle scores. She, blinded by her narcissism and the fact that she's not very bright, fails to see how glaringly obvious it is, and despite the denials of the lieutenant, nobody's buying it. In fact, this whole process has backfired, as I mentioned a couple of days ago. And if you want further justification of it backfiring, you can see the way that the press has responded by pointing out the nastiness of the publication, the ridiculousness of its content, and how so much of it is baseless. Many of the individuals writing in the press are serious journalists. They've earned their corn. They went to journalism school. They have ploughed their way through many years of reporting, of pursuing stories, of writing opinion pieces, of undertaking investigative work, etc. And they've earned their corn. They're not some lightweight Johnny-come-lately in the way that Omid Scobie has behaved. And that clearly irks many of the journalists and has motivated them to want to demonstrate what a lightweight liar Scobie is. Camilla Tominey, who writes in the Telegraph, states, sadly, getting both sides of any story has never been Omid Scobie's forte. Perhaps the most amusing thing about Bell Endgame is how much this fearless journalist gets wrong in his tireless pursuit of this one's wife's truth. Just as I have always admired the seamless way the Duchess of Sussex's truth has sometimes clashed with fact, so too do I have a grudging respect for Omid Scobie. Lest we forget, this is a man who spent a decade raking over celebrities' private lives for Us Weekly, only to brazenly tweet in 2021, "Privacy means freedom from unauthorized intrusion. It is the right to choose what you share with others. And what you don't. That's it." At the time, such outbursts left journalists like me in disbelief. Wasn't this the guy whose entire career was built on analysing snatched paparazzi images of the rich and famous? Imagine our incredulity when Scobie launched into repeated attacks on the very royal press pack he followed around like a puppy. I saw, with my own eyes, how he tried to muscle in on the rota system in a bid to gain access to the very members of the royal family. He now seeks to trash in his second book, Bell Endgame, which hit bookshelves on Tuesday. You have to admire the brass neck of the bloke, you really do. I remember one incident on a royal tour when he was literally begging me to tell him the sources of my various royal scoops, and to think he's now so reluctant to discuss his own, demonstrating, of course, the hypocrisy of Omid Scobie. Who on earth could they be, I wonder, asks Tominey. Perhaps the most amusing thing about Bell Endgame is how much this fearless journalist gets wrong in his tireless pursuit of this one's wife's truth. As my colleague Hannah Furness, back from maternity leave as royal editor, points out, the world was not told about the late Queen Elizabeth II's death at 6:10 p.m, but at 6:30 p.m. The funeral on September the 19th, 2022 was that of the Queen, not Prince Philip. Palace aides were racking their brains to remember the 5 private secretaries who have come and gone from the Duchess of Cambridge's office. There have actually been 3. And contrary to the claim you'd be unlikely to read about it in any British newspaper, the Telegraph reported on exactly that staffing issue last week. Just a smattering of examples of how Scobie gets it wrong. Hey, but why let facts get in the way of a good story? In one passage, I am described as the Telegraph's royal editor, which I'm not and never have been. Referring to a piece I had written about the now infamous dog bowl incident, "He broke my necklace," in which I suggested that it showed how much love William has for his little brother, that he felt the need to physically wrestle him to the ground, Scobie comments that I sound like the excuses of domestic abusers everywhere. Domestic abuse? Is that what we are calling sibling rivalry these days? In another passage, Scobie suggests that the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, also known as Edward and Sophie, were casually bigoted for saying "Oprah who?" in response to a question about the US TV Supremo's bombshell interview with the Sussexes. Since I was the one who asked them the question in an interview for the Telegraph magazine in June 2021, I wish Scobie had actually bothered to call me for clarification. I'd have told Monty Shitshow's answer to Walter Cronkite that they were actually joking, as if to say, we deny all knowledge of the Oprah interview. Sadly, getting both sides of any story has never been Scobie's forte. We are now being asked to believe that it was a translation error, that the names of two alleged royal racists had been left in the now pulled Dutch copies of Bell Endgame, even though they were completely absent from the English version. And we're supposed to accept this narrative even after Scobie had bragged on US television that he knew the names of both alleged racists. You know, I really thought I'd seen it all when this one's wife told Oprah, with a straight face, that the Archbishop of Canterbury had married them 3 days before their official wedding ceremony, that she'd had her passport confiscated only to jet off on multiple holidays, that Kate had made her cry and not the other way around. I thought I'd heard it all when sources close to these two multimillionaires, who were still receiving a £700,000 allowance from the King after Megxit, revealed the couple was so desperate they had no choice but to sign deals with Netflix et al., even though we know they were speaking to streaming companies as early as 2018, a whole 2 years before they stepped down as working members of the royal family. I thought I'd heard it all when Scobie, of all people, claimed to be both a champion of privacy and an accountable press, only to publish not one, but two completely unauthorised intrusions into the lives of the royal family, so lacking in balance as to be laughable. We must believe all victims of bullying, insists Scobie, who was comforted by this one's wife when he copped the kind of flack we all get, day in and day out on social media, except when they're accusing the Sussexes of it. You really couldn't make it up. And of course, what this demonstrates is the fact that this one's wife, operating in the moment to try and force a poor narrative of the royal family, fuck up once again. This one's wife is a mid-range narcissist, a mid-range narcissist who operates in the moment, doesn't think ahead with anywhere near the level of calculating precision that some people seem to think that she has. Furthermore, she's not very bright either. And so what she does is she utilises Omid Scobie as her lieutenant to smear by proxy, without understanding or recognising the risks that she's running. Namely, people will not believe what's being stated, and it then provides a further opportunity for newspapers, such as the Telegraph, to show all of the lies, the revisions of history, the hypocrisies and contradictions of this one's wife. Thus, it completely backfires. She thinks that she's going to land blows upon Catherine and Charles, against William, against Camilla, against other members of the royal family, through the nonsense that's parroted out by Scobie. But all that happens is that people, because they've got brains, say that doesn't make sense, that doesn't add up. And of course, what she fails to have regard to is that she is known as an habitual liar. Therefore, whatever is pumped out on her behalf goes through analysis by people and invariably is looked at with complete cynicism. Not only that, because she isn't that sophisticated, the porky pies that are told are easily disprovable, and thus all that happens is that she just cements her reputation as somebody who tells fibs. She cements her reputation as a liar. She thinks, oh, they'll buy it because it's not me actually saying it. It's Omid Scobie who's saying it. And Omid's been saying that we're not friends, and there's been no direct contact between us. Therefore, everybody's going to accept that, and therefore they will believe what is being said about the royal family. It really does show the type of simpleton that she is. But not only does the attempt to smear fail, it then blows up, because by way of retaliation, so many publications point out all of the things that she's done before, providing everybody with a useful refresher course as to her own mendacious behaviours. Omid Scobie gets so much wrong in this publication, and this one's wife gets so much wrong in her attempts to smear. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.